Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay, so we are talking about mental health and exam stress. So the first thing, I guess, to start off with talking about this topic is understanding the prevalent mental health issues in law, and obviously in law students then. It's something that's been particularly pervasive in this field, as a combination of kind of like type A personalities. It tends to attract people who are kind of, hardworking, overachieving types, as well as the stress and the competitive nature almost in trying to acquire certain job positions, that kind of works against community building, in the sense that you're meant to feel like you're competing against the person next to you, rather than that's someone that you can work with and rely on and support each other through a shared experience. So the key thing in understanding, I guess, mental health, especially if you're like newer or first year starting in this type of climate where you're even less physically connected to these people, is that you're not alone. And in fact, if you're experiencing mental health issues, you're in the majority. Especially, and these were stats that were pre-COVID. So then considering that, it really is an understanding that most of the people around you are in a similar boat to you, whether that's experiencing some form of anxiety, which is actually the most common mental health disorder in Australia, or obviously depression, and especially in COVID, an increase in substance uses disorders. So in considering those things, especially when it comes to studying, I guess we're trying to encourage community building, and the different ways you can do that through like joining the LSS, even just attending committee meetings, and also using the Juris Doctor Study Support Group, which is specifically set up by Marius, and trying to encourage, like, foster that communication with the other students around you. So that's the kind of general advice. I have a bunch of contacts I'm just going to quickly paste in the chat. The first ones will be crisis support, because while we're here, and you can contact me at the equity email, we're not 24/7, we're not crisis support, and those emails aren't monitored. So first I'll put in Lifeline and the Suicide Callback Hotline, which are 24/7 call centers, a bunch of specific hotlines. So like if you're experiencing a more specific issue, and then also a link to where you can find support groups. So if you like actually talking to other people in similar positions to you, rather than calling a hotline. So those will be in the chat. And then we can get started into the different questions. Someone wants to jump in there.
Thanks, Castro. Lewis, are you good to go?
Yes, sorry, just finishing my carrot. Good timing. All right, so yeah, we had a couple of questions submitted to the Google kind of form that we had set up. So the first one is just in relation to like studying at home. So someone, and this is all anonymous, so if one of you submitted this, don't worry, don't know who you are, and if you submitted this, it's all good. So studying from home makes it difficult to make study groups if you don't know people who are taking the same units as you, etc. What's the best way to approach random law students to form a study group at the start of semester? And I guess like now at the end of semester.
I might just kick that off. I think, well, for me personally, I've been using the Juris Doctor Study Support Group on Facebook. So I've actually found that really useful because it's so easy. You don't have to know anyone. You don't even have to like speak up. You just chuck out a post and say, hey, anyone want to start a property law study group? And everybody just jumps on it. Like everybody secretly wants to be in a study group. So I found that really, really helpful. So if anyone's not on that group, definitely get on that group. But I think like even in your lectures, it'd be relatively easy to kind of, I guess, like just sort of speak up at the start of class and say, you know, if anyone wants to start a study group for this class, or chuck it in the chat, you know. I think people would actually be pretty keen. Brooke, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, it's really, it is quite difficult being online and not being able to speak to anyone in class, but the study group is a really good resource, especially, you know, you can make messenger groups after that and continue to help each other, and that's probably the best way at the moment to get to know your other students.
Another idea, even, you know, I haven't done this myself, but I think like the lecturers are pretty keen to help out in terms of if you send an email to your lecturer, you know, if you don't want to speak up yourself in class, you can send an email to your lecturer usually, and then just say that you're sort of keen on starting a study group so they can refer other people that they know, or they can give a shout out in the lecture itself, and then it'll obviously be on the recording and stuff like that. So I think that's really helpful. Like, I mean, getting study groups together seems hard, but I think actually there's a lot of mechanisms now that make it a lot easier, you know. I think that's it for that one. Lewis?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, second question. Online exams. What processes does everyone have what processes does everyone use for completing online exams that are Q&A style?
Brookie, do you want to start that one?
Oh, I was going to say, for me with online exams, I use an app called Multi-Timer. So you can have like one screen and different timers going. So then I can have like a countdown set for like how long I have from downloading it. But I then also have like, if I know that, you know, 25 points is, you know, 20 minutes or whatever, I can have that set for all the different like times. So then
That's so genius.
Question I should be, yeah.
What's that called, Castro?
Multi-timer. It's
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, that's so smart.
So that's just an example one I set up like in 2 minutes, but yeah, it's called Multi-Timer, and it looks, I don't know, you can't really see. It's called Multi-Timer. It's got little clocks.
So you can kind of set that up on your screen, can you? Like,
yeah, and you
split
literally
screen.
add as many like timers into the one screen that you want, and it like changes size. So you could have like different ones on the one screen. So then you're not having to switch between or like try and do maths in your head. It's like all there.
Yeah, well, I would say actually that made me think, I mean, piggybacking off that, I think it's sort of the same thing, is like, you know, they say in every exam that you should work out ahead of time how much time you have allocated by marks. But I think it becomes way more important in the online format because you've got so much extra time. You've got like 2 hours and 30 minutes, I think, for all of our exams. Don't underestimate how stressful the uploading process is. So like I think last semester I left myself like a full 15 minutes. Obviously ended up completing it, you know, with like 1 minute to spare. And it was like the most stressful experience of my life to try and get it in that 1 minute. Because you got to upload it twice. Yeah, you got to upload it twice. You got to upload it once to turn it in. And then you have to upload it again to the actual thing. Or it was something like that. Like you had to upload it twice for some reason. It was terrifying.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that. So I think so for everyone, make sure you do that, because I did not for both of my exams. And I had to do it like a week later to upload it a second time. Thankfully, because it's timestamped from when you like first upload it, it's okay that you know that you've done it. But it is helpful if you read the instructions and do everything properly.
Yeah, I'll drop in with something. I think the first thing you need to do is read your exam. I made that mistake last term, but I got so nervous that I just skipped the questions. I just went question by question, and I just waste, like, especially if you're going to time yourself, that just throws your whole schedule out. So make sure you read the exam first, stay calm. You have that 15 minutes, use it wisely. That's all. Yeah, that's my kind of advice.
No, I know what you mean. I think I did the same thing. Like I misunderstood. I miscalculated the marks and hadn't read it like properly, and so I actually forgot how many questions there were. So I was like rushing through question 5, and then I was like, oh crap, that's the last question. So I had to go back and fix all my answers because I'd done them so shitly, you know.
Can I add with online exams in particular? Control F is your best friend. If you don't know keyboard shortcuts by now, Control F, Control C, Control V, you need to get that. Like that is just, it'll save you like minutes overall.
Yeah, I think if you can get a second screen, like it's your best friend, especially on the online exams. Having a second screen available, you can buy one or borrow one, get a second screen with your best friend.
I partly agree with that, but I also find it, or personally, I find it very useful to be able to copy and paste into the document. So like I actually have a second computer, which I use all the time, but when I'm doing my exams, I actually prefer to have it split screen so that I can copy and paste definitions. If I want to copy a quote and then chuck it straight into the thing, I find that really useful. And another thing is that, I mean, one of the most useful thing in law exams generally, but it's a lot easier to do this in the online exams, is writing up your answers ahead of time. Because I think you kind of know how the general structure is going to go, like say you get a question on, I don't know, duty of care or something like that. And the steps, like you're going to have to say what duty of care is, how do you know when it applies, and then apply it to the facts, right? Using the IRAC. So in that sense, you can actually put in your notes the step by step of how you would answer that question. Write first the definition, and you can literally copy and paste that because that's your own words. So that's really useful to do. And I think if you do have the split screen on one laptop, then you can make it really easy to copy and paste that stuff. But I'd really encourage that, to do as much work as you can before you get in there. Don't leave anything up to chance.
I think also if you're a first year JD and so your only experience with JD exams is online, do not underestimate the time consuming power of Google. Please make sure that you have as many answers written down beforehand, because you will waste so much time Googling things if you don't have that set down. Honestly, we all fall into that trap. Just make sure you're prepared, because it might seem like it's just going to be really easy to quickly Google something, and then 5 to 10 minutes have gone and you've lost that time in writing, and you don't get that in normal exams. So it's just to be mindful that you need to make sure that you got everything with you and you're not on the internet too much.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
You can also,
awesome.
by the way, if your teacher has given you like PowerPoints, you can export them as a PDF, which then makes them like easily searchable. And then you can combine all those PDFs into one PDF. So you have all the semester's PowerPoints in a searchable form. I'm just saying.
Okay, why
Legendary.
haven't I had your study tips before now, honestly? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Also, this is a useful tip we got the other day from James, is make sure you know your keywords. So if you have certain cases or certain keywords, make sure you have a keyword. So if you need to find a case of certain facts that relate to the exam, make sure you have kind of keywords that you can use. Instead of searching case names, maybe you have like a keyword that you can use that relates. So let's say like like duty of care, make sure there's something that I don't know, like the Woolworths. Let's say the Woolworths case. Then you can just search Woolies as a case. So just put those in your notes. So when you search, you know which keywords you're going to look for. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
totally.
the example he gave, I was there too, is like there was a case that was about a ticket that was issued at Luna Park. So it's like, you can write down the case, but include like the Luna Park case about the Ferris wheel parking ticket. So then you're like, oh, what's that case? It was about the Ferris wheel. You can go Control F and then find Ferris wheel in your notes, and then there's the case name.
Yeah, that's so smart. And I think that helps you be able to quickly locate it in your notes. It's just genius, basically. Yeah.
And the different approach, I think, if you're comparing notes for a written exam, you really do want them to be as concise and easy to flip through as possible. But with online exam, you want it to be like searchable, like key terms. That's
That's awesome. Sounds good. Sounds like we've got a lot of Control F-ing ahead of us. Can't wait. So what would say you've got like the next week off and you've got exams all next week or whatever, what would your day look like? Like, how do you best use your day to study?
I'll go first here. This is going to be super personal to everyone. So like, luckily, we've got a couple of different opinions here. For me personally, I'm always really behind in my lectures at the end of semester. Like I'm talking 5 weeks. So my number one priority is always to catch up on those as fast as I can. So once I've caught up on my lectures, then I go through and I basically prioritize what are the weeks that I find the hardest. So I will write them down in order of how well I know them, because, you know, sometimes you've done a memo on certain weeks' content, so you know it a bit better. So I'll put those at the end, you know, because I might run out of time to go over them. Then I basically go through week by week and I go through all of the readings for that week. Then I do the questions for that week, and then I go through the tutorial for that week. Then I move on to the next week. So that's what I've been doing, just basically systematically going along, because I'm not good at keeping up with the readings as I go in semester. I'll do the lecture a lot of the time, but not the readings. The readings is when, that's when I get into the readings, is like when I'm specifically doing exam prep. And then like by following it up with the questions and stuff like that, when your mind is fresh and you haven't got all this other stuff that you're focusing on during semester, I find that it actually sticks in my brain. And then finally, once I've sort of gone through all of that stuff, towards the end, a couple of days before the exam, I'll actually go through the practice exams and listen to the revision lecture and all that kind of stuff. But also important is cleaning up my notes. So I kind of just try and like get them into exam format. So like making sure I've got the actual legislation copied and pasted into the thing, that I've marked it up, highlighted it, understood it, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's my process anyway.
My process is a lot less thorough, I'll be honest about that. I'm even more than 5 weeks behind usually. I'm pretty terrible at keeping up with lectures and readings. So usually I literally set out days based on like what class I'm deciding to go through. And I just try and do as many practice questions as I can. I don't usually set my notes out quite like Cassie. I really just do questions, because I find that I learn so much better that way. And I'm also really not disciplined at all when it comes to my notes. So the best thing that I can do is to have the PowerPoints open and do as many questions as I can, have all the answers written down somewhere. And also as well, because I'll probably be referring to the PowerPoints during the exam anyway, just when I have issues. So I try and do that as much as I can out before the exam, so that I sort of like have an idea of where everything is if I get stuck on anything. So that's my process.
For me, so I find that this is the time where you could be like making notes, but because I'm similar to Brooke, I don't learn that way. My mind isn't good at like organizing content. If it's a class that I really know that I need to spend more time answering practice questions and working out that way, I will sometimes like buy notes, which you can do, and that's like allowed from like previous RMIT students who've gotten good marks, because I know that it would genuinely be a waste of my time and I'd learn nothing if I spent a week trying to like combine it all and make it look pretty. That's not how my brain works. So I think it's what's your best learning style. I know some people like by like rewriting notes in a way that's like really pretty and aesthetic and organized, it helps them store it in their brain. And that's not me. So I don't do that. So yeah, I just try and do questions. I think that's the only way to really feel that for me, I can be prepared for anything.
As an add-on to that, Student VIP actually has a lot of free notes for a lot of these classes. I've honest to God used them while I'm doing memorandums. They are a godsend. So if anyone finds that helpful, absolutely look up some notes, because some people take really detailed notes and I'm really bad at that. So it's quite a good resource.
No, I think actually, like, I've never bought notes, but to be honest, I think at this point I actually would like start doing it, because like what you really need is you've got so much lecture content and you need to condense it down into, I mean, law is all about like the step by step, like the analysis, right? And what a lot of people with the paid notes or even some of the student VIP notes that you're talking about, what they've done is they've gone through and they've literally just synchronized the most essential information, and they've put the points of law in there and provided case references and stuff like that. So you can literally go into those notes, take advantage of all the work that those people have done, and just not copy and paste their words, but copy and paste their ideas and the law that as they've set it out, because it's, you know, it's simplified everything that you've learned basically. So even I was looking at the student VIP notes today with regard to property law, and I think with property law, if anyone who's doing it or has done it knows, it's just this most insane quantity of law and work, and it's that you can't hold it all in your brain. And
really
at the moment, I'm struggling to even sort of simplify it down into the basic bare concepts. So I realized today, ironically, considering we're now discussing it, like I realized that that's where I should have started. I should have gone straight to student VIP, downloaded all these, kind of streamlined notes and start there, because reading them makes all the concepts a lot easier to understand. Then I can go back to my lecture notes and sort of approach the more detailed notes that's in the lecture from the perspective that I now have, which is now I actually basically understand the concepts. But yeah.
I feel like we should be clear as well that the point in all this, though, is everything you put in the exam is your own words and own writing. So like reading people's notes, having textbooks or PowerPoints there, that's all allowed, just to be clear. So everyone is on the same page, no one gets in trouble. Everything you put in the exam is your own words. It's just the way the content is organized can be someone else's. That's the distinction. Right.
Yes. Like steal their references and stuff. Yeah. But don't steal their words.
Apply the law yourself.
I don't know, like in terms of, I guess specifically arranging notes, there's so many different ways to do it. I personally use OneNote. I don't know if anyone else uses that. I discovered that, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but not that 3 years into my degree, I discovered it. And I find that to be the most amazing, incredible notes platform imaginable. If you like, because if you like color and just like really cool like ways of tagging different information and linking it and setting reminders for yourself within the program, it's really, really amazing with all the different pages and everything like that. So I'd really recommend that to anyone who's more visual.
What's it called, Cass?
It's called OneNote. It's a Microsoft program. It's not very hard to use, but I even went to because I'm very I like colors. Well, actually I need colors to understand the information. So I even went to all the trouble, started the semester of Googling tips for beautifying your OneNote. So I found this blog that this guy had written, and he'd gone into the most specific detail about how he writes his notes in OneNote, basically the different functions he can use. He creates a little kind of Excel cell within the thing, which creates a divider, and you can make it colored. So I've got all my different pages at the moment. They're all color coded differently. So, week 1 might be blue, week 2 might be purple. And then within that document, all of my headings are purple and my spaces are purple. So it's stupid things like that. But for me, that really works because I need my notes to be really beautiful. But yeah, and you can also search within that. So it still kind of works. And yeah.
Alrighty, I think they're all the questions that we had submitted. So what we might do now is just kind of open up the floor, and if anyone else has any questions that they'd like to submit with anything related to the exams or mental health and well-being, or if you just want to pick, some of these second and third years brains, then now's your opportunity. So feel free to pop your microphone on and ask a question, or write something in the chat, or send an owl. I can type my address in the chat, whatever works. It's all good.
Yeah, you can change the chat to private to someone specific as well if you want it to be anonymous, whatever. We totally respect that.
How do you do that?
So in the chat it says to, and you click on the name, and then
yeah.
So it might say everyone, and then you click on that, and that's how you can do it that way. Yeah.
I'll just mention this quickly for anyone who's a second year student or in their second online exam. I hope everyone saw the exams are only 24 hours this time and not 48
yeah.
hours. I just saw that today. So I did put out a general post on the study support group. Hopefully that filters through, but I only realized that today myself. So not the 48 hours we used to have.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question then. What's your day of exam routine then? So how do you structure your day? You're going to take it?
I think really important, I mean, like surely by now, I'd hope most people know their study habits in terms of, are you a morning studier or you were like a night studier? Like, as in what's your time of day that you are most fresh? Because like for me, it's straight away in the morning. But I found last semester what worked for me was basically just wake up, kind of have a cup of tea and then study for like no more than an hour because I don't want to wear my brain out. And then I basically just jump straight into it because I am trusting my preparation up to that point, that I've sort of like cleaned up my notes and everything, and there's nothing else that I sort of need to do. But yeah, make sure you have a quiet space, because like my housemates get really noisy and they drive me nuts. So learn from my mistake there. What about you, Brookie?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think because it's online, it's a lot easier to get it done straight away. There's less anticipation of it being like that afternoon. My routine for exams before online was quite specific. This is mostly just getting it done as soon as possible. I'm the same, just try not to study too much beforehand because I've got to trust the preparation that I've made. I also drink a couple cups of tea or somewhere quiet and just complete it. So that's, yeah, just don't sit around and worry about it too much. You've got to trust that you've done everything that you can and you'll be fine.
I have a little routine in the morning where I set up my like it's kind of dorky now saying it out loud, like the snacks I'm gonna have throughout the day. So like I'll have, you know, like a solid breakfast, a coffee or like an energy drink, and then I'm a very snacky person, so I'll have like chips and carrots to like snack on through the exam, and then I'll have like sometimes like some champagne or like, you know, maybe like some tequila and orange juice or something like set up after, you know, on ice. And like sometimes like something nice frozen or like, you know, something nice like set up, and that's like my goal, the visualization. And I also yeah, I try and use like kind of music as well, and I'll try and have like a calm kind of session that like amps up with my music throughout the day, so I feel kind of like pumped by the time I'm ready for the exam. I don't know, just like get in the headspace, because it's hard, like especially in lockdown. I feel like being in the same place every day to like take it seriously, you know. I feel like I really struggle to be like, this is worth 50% of my grade, like, so I try to like shift that headspace.
I might actually just like ask a question of you guys too. Like, what do we all think about in terms of preparing for the actual exam? I know we talked about sort of preparing questions, and like that seems to be a really common thing. It works for most people. Like they need to do the practice questions. Do you guys bother to actually go through and read a whole case? Like, so read the cases that are under each week?
I can't say that I ever have. No.
Is that something you'd recommend?
No, I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't. I mostly just read the judgment and the like the specifics of the case itself, because it's really long-winded, and I find that sometimes it just makes me confused. I don't always know what the hell is going on in them. But if I can get a summary and like I understand the basics of the case and the judgment, and especially if there's a test that's specific, you know, that a precedent has been set, then obviously I'll probably read a little bit more of it, but I can't say that I've ever read a full case. I don't think I've ever done that once.
I sort of agree with you. I don't usually bother to read the cases just because it's not good value for time. But I would actually recommend to people, if you have like a really pivotal case, like a case that sets out like a whole legal rule, especially where you're not it's not like super clicking, like it's not super, making sense to you, then you should go and read the case. Because like the level of understanding that you'll get from actually reading the judgment will make a huge difference, especially if it's not really making a whole lot of sense to you. But in terms of reading every single case, no, I would also say not necessary.
Yeah,
Anyone
I
else
agree
have
with you.
thoughts?
I was going to say it depends. So it might be kind of unique to me, but I know that I want to do criminal law. So I really view the classes that are like going to be key to that, as opposed to other classes that I'm essentially having to do to get like a degree. So if it's something that I know I want to invest time in and understanding long term, like criminal law, like, evidence, like that kind of thing, or one that like I'm really kind of genuinely interested in, I'll take the time to get that deeper understanding. But if it's something that I'm like, I know this is like, my dad will be like 51% is 1% wasted effort. It's like just that get that pass and get that tick box, which I know isn't everyone. Some people going for like really high competitive jobs need to, get good marks across the board. But I've consciously been like, I don't need this, so I'm going to spend my time elsewhere. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I would say, like, so I guess that's cases, but with respect to legislation, I only recently, I mean, literally last semester for the first time, realized how important it is to actually look at I don't know, lecturers always say it, to look at the actual legislation rather than, when you're going through the lecture and the people, like when they put an excerpt of the legislation, like of the provision on the slide, and, maybe they've colored it in and whatever, but like I never understood legislation and how it worked until I actually went back and properly looked at it on Ostley, and then I copied and pasted it from Ostley, and then you can see how it all fits together.
I have to say I've always looked at the legislation as well, because sometimes like what they put on the PowerPoint, I don't understand always like where it fits. So I always have the legislation open as well.
Yeah, because I find it hard to follow and hard to understand how it all fits together. So like even just like doing a page of summary notes just with noting how the legislation specifically fits together, like if you find that hard, because I definitely do for some reason. It never quite sticks in my brain, the legislation, because it's not conceptual, I guess, but yeah.
We have a question that was submitted by Anders in the chat. He had to run off, so I said that I'll read it out because I think he would like to listen to the recording later and see what you guys had to say about it. But he asked, how do you deal with the pressures of dealing with uni while also trying to get experience and a foot in the door of the industry? I'd be keen to hear your reflections, as it seems like the further into the JD you go, the more balls you have to juggle.
As someone who's really struggled to get their foot in the door, I would have to say you just need to take some pressure off yourself. Like it's not all going to happen in one night. It's okay to just study and do the best you can at uni and then sort that out later. There's a lot of options open for you. And sort of like get an idea first of where you kind of want to go, whether or not you actually want to practice as a lawyer, or if you just want the JD to go into politics or whatever kind of career avenue that you want. Just sort of have a think about that and don't rush into anything. There's absolutely no need to rush. It's not, they're obviously like there are competitive jobs that everyone wants, and there are a lot of lawyers in the world. But there's no need to stress yourself out trying to get everything done at once. It'll happen when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I think the most important thing is being really clear about what you actually want. I mean, obviously a lot of us don't really know that, but the clearer that you can be about, say, what area of law you want to work in or where you want to go, that's going to help you to narrow your focus and sort of know what you should do. I find a lot of people sort of, feel overwhelmed and don't really know what to do to sort of achieve their goals because they think too far into the future. Like if your goal is that you want to be like a criminal lawyer, say, people think, okay, I want to be a criminal lawyer, so maybe the first step is to become a paralegal, but they can't get a paralegal spot because it's super competitive. And so then they just feel a bit like, okay, well, what do I do now? But I think, like, honestly, like, you need to just take 10 steps back and be prepared to start from the bottom. Like, diversify your experience from a way that's readily, you know, a way that you can right now. So, like, you know, maybe sign up for like a criminal law moot, you know, and then that might introduce you to some people, or, you know, you might get more experience that way, and that gives you something to talk about in an interview for a paralegal spot at a criminal law firm. You know, like, that might actually lead to better outcomes. I think a lot of people don't jump in and take all of the opportunities that are available because they're sort of just thinking in a really narrow sense that this won't benefit me in the long run, this won't help me get a job. But actually all of this stuff will, you know, like going to conferences and, you know, going to panel discussions and meeting people in the industry and, you know, joining the LSS and like just meeting other people who want to be lawyers, you know, all that stuff, all the connections and all of the networking and stuff like that. You build skills, whether or not it seems directly relevant to like the career that you want. I don't know if that sounds harsh, but like.
I can give a very specific example to that as well. So I always wanted to be a criminal lawyer. Can't tell you that I know really what I want to do at the moment, but I don't currently work specifically in law at all. I work at a youth prison, and I didn't really think that that was necessarily going to benefit me in terms of where I wanted to go in my career, but I found it really beneficial in my view of the criminal justice system and how that will work on both sides and helping me shape the kind of lawyer I want to be, whether or not I want to be one at all. So I think any kind of job that you want to do, it doesn't really matter if you think that it's going to be relevant. Just like Cassie said, anything you do is going to give you experience. It's going to help you shape your own worldview and your own idea of what you actually like and where you want to go from here. So there's absolutely no need to try and pigeonhole yourself into something, especially if you want to do criminal law. If there aren't clerkships available, which there often aren't, it's honestly not a bad thing if you go into commercial to start off with. You can change your what you want to do at any time. So just don't stress too much about it. It's all going to be fine.
I might say this: if you are keen on just getting like experience or maybe getting to know people, maybe just email smaller firms. And if you have an idea in which direction you want to go, reach out. Maybe see if you can shadow like a barrister. If that's something that interests you, like maybe just email them and see like, hey, can I come for a week if you have the time, or maybe half a day, like just see if you can get into their office and see if they will take you through things, how they work, how they operate. Or if they could possibly, if you build that contact, they could introduce you to other people, like with lawyers they work with. So I would say, yeah, if you know where you want to go, then maybe go for maybe the smaller firms to start with instead of competing with all the other big unis out there as well for limited spaces. Try and see if you can get a foot maybe in that way into the industry.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, just building as much practical experience. Like I always say to people, I know grades are important, but to me, honestly, and like, I don't think lecturers necessarily like it when I say this, but stop worrying about your grades and focus more, like devote more of your time to doing volunteering or, you know, doing things that are going to look good on your resume, like that are going to make you look like you actually were a student at a university who was trying to build a career rather than just like trying to get good grades like in year 12. Not that there's anything wrong with being year 12, but
I'll add on to Cassandra's thing about the grade maybe is like, because I think students will get sometimes you're being assessed at the master's level, like we're covering the fundamentals of law, but you're still being assessed at the master's level. And I think sometimes this will get that, like, so if you don't get like what you usually get in maybe your undergraduate where you were 70s, 80s, and suddenly you're 60s and maybe 70s, just remember you're at the master level degree at this stage.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's being assessed at the master level. So just take a step back and be like, it's not the end. Not every doctor got 80 out of 100. So just be aware of that as well.
And I would also say don't underestimate the power of events. Like, I'd say that it's almost more effective to like spend a time going to an event in a field or a firm and like making a Zoom connection, as awkward as you might feel. Because then when you email that person later, like, it was so nice to meet you briefly in that, suddenly you're like a real person. and it shows that 10 minutes you took out of your day, or like half an hour to be on this, like already has then put you at the front of that line, because it shows like a genuine interest. So don't underestimate free events and like volunteering. You don't have to be, as Cass said, like starting off like top tier. If you are genuinely interested in something, do things in that something, and people will see that interest reflected in that.
I'll say one last point, and this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but I swear to God, it's actually 100% true. If you're really keen to build a career for yourself, you really should join the LSS. And I don't say that lightly. Like we just by virtue of what we do, we naturally have lots of connections in the industry, and like just being part of it, you'll actually start forming these connections by accident. Like I only got I work at a law firm now, and I only got that job because of my connection with the LSS. And then that led me to like a volunteering spot at the NJC. And then that led me to a volunteering spot at Youth Law, which is actually where I want to be. Like that's the area of law I'm really interested in. So yeah, look, if nothing else, if you're honestly feeling like, I don't know where to go, I don't know how to start building my career, join the LSS, and then, you know, I promise that good things will follow.
Awesome,
Yeah.
Good tips. We do also have a question in the chat from Emily. How does everyone generally juggle full-time work and 75%/100% uni?
Don't do 75 to 100% uni is my answer. I think that there's so much pressure, and just to tie it back to the mental health thing, there's an assumption that everyone is doing full-time uni and full-time work, and that's just not true. There are a lot of people doing lots of different options, and there's nothing wrong in taking the time. This is something that you're dedicating years and like tens of thousands of dollars to. It doesn't have to be done in 3 years. You're getting the same value. You take a bit longer. You're even getting more if you're taking the time to, like, for me, understand the content properly and not destroy my mental health in the process. Like, I want to come out of this degree feeling energized and ready to join the workforce, not feeling like I'm about to collapse and need a vacation. So I think keeping that in mind is that you need that your study work balance to be sustainable long term. Like for your degree, you need to be willing to have that flexibility, and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Keep in mind, unrealistic standards because of assumptions you're making about things other people are doing or things that are normal that might just not be accurate,
Yeah, I did full-time study, full-time work for about 3 months, and it seriously burned me out. I currently do full-time study, but I don't full-time work, and I just think it's almost impossible to do both, and I do not recommend it at all. Just figure out what works for you.
I think like basically just echoing what you guys have said. Like nobody's saying you need to, I know for some people it's really important to them to get the degree over quickly. That's like their priority, but just don't be scared to just drop 1 unit, because I started off with 4 units, and after the first year, so after I finished my first year, I dropped down to just 3. So it was only 1 unit difference, but the effect on my mental health and how much free time I had and just how much more confident I felt with the material was literally like night and day. And at the end of it, now I'm at the end of my 3rd year, and it's only added 1 semester. So I've been doing 3 units all the way through. It's literally only added 6 months. And at the end of the day, like what difference does that make to me in 10 years when I'm a lawyer? Like 1 semester is going to make less than no difference to my life. But it's made such a massive difference on my grades and my happiness and my ability to like do other things. And I would also just say, in terms of like, obviously it's not going to help you manage things, but just spending some time keeping yourself, how do I say, like reminding yourself why you want to be a lawyer. I found that one thing that really helped me, like took me from really depressedly, trying to regurgitate criminal law and contract law concepts and not really understanding where it all fit. Once I started competing in moots and things like that, like things that were more like hands-on, I actually got to see the fun side of, being a lawyer, which is obviously what I want to do. And after that, everything sort of clicked and fell into place. And I sort of realized, like this is how we use these kind of concepts and stuff. So it made me a lot happier, even when you had the crappy late night contract law sessions and stuff like that. So that's another thing that I find actually in the end, even though it's like less time for you, it actually in the end made it more manageable in terms of like juggling all that stuff.
And I just before as well, I didn't come across as judgy. I meant it empathetically, because like I had like guilt in dropping down in subjects, thinking that like I couldn't handle it, and I like internalized that like as a failure, that I couldn't handle it. And actually it was totally okay, especially now considering the state of the world. That prioritizing for me, as I said, like a sustainable study load as opposed to like the one I think I should be doing was like a big game changer for me. So I didn't mean to assume anything about anyone else's situation. I was purely talking about me and my own experience in that. But I did actually have a little, again, maybe dorky, but an exercise for me in approaching like self-care in your study is to think about actually what are the things stopping me, in the sense of not like things I can do, like I can make myself a cup of tea, I can meditate, but actually what am I not doing and why am I not doing that? And for me, it's because I felt like, again, totally me, but like if I was taking a break, oh no, I'm just procrastinating. You know, if I'm going to make a cup of tea, I'm just procrastinating. It's not worth it. Instead of saying, no, like I'm going to take a break and reset. And like that's important. So like thinking about why you're not necessarily doing like a healthier long-term thing. Or like for me, like, why am I chugging 4 Vs in a day to study? Is that sustainable? No, I'm going to give myself a heart attack. So why am I doing that? It's because I was putting too much pressure on myself. So the only solution to that problem was to put less pressure on myself, not drink more Vs, like, if that makes sense.
I agree with that. Sure. I think if you're absolutely going to, like, if you refuse to not sort of study full-time, work full-time, you need to put some effort into creating manageable study habits. So you need to be able to like triage your subjects and say, okay, this subject is easy for me, I'm going to spend less time on that each week. This subject is hard for me, I need to dedicate 2 hours a day to doing that. Give yourself permission to skip lectures if life gets in the way, but keep it manageable so that you know I will catch up. If you have good study habits in place, you know that as soon as your assignments are done, you're back trying to catch up those lectures. So like, if you can do that, then yes, you can sort of pick up a heavier workload. But you need to put the effort into working that stuff out first. That would be my final tip.
That's awesome. On that, we might start wrapping things up, because I know a few of us do have to run off to the intro info session.
Yes. One final thing. Sure, ask older students what are easier subjects and harder, so you know which ones to combine. So
agree.
So
definitely.
Love it. Got to be strategic. All righty. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time and for, you know, imparting this wisdom to us. I receive it, I take it on, and I love it. So thank you. And yeah, thanks everyone. I hope you all have a good night and stay sane and stay safe and healthy, and look after yourself and cut down on those V's. Hey.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
See you later, guys.